Now then, we have a very exciting bottle on our little table today. This is a Laphroaig bottled by Samaroli.
Wow.
Laphroaig, obviously I'm sure you know inside out. Of
course.
What do you know about Laphroaig? Put
So-
you on the
so,
spot. Tell me everything. Laphroaig. History, go.
So Laphroaig kicks my arse.
Is that okay?
Full stop, period. This is something that generally, as a distillery, it's intimidated me because I've not drank a lot of their liquid.
Okay.
Typical stories of people starting with a Laphroaig 10 or getting a quarter cask put under your nose, it's just putting you off.
Scarred for life.
It's a challenging whiskey. It is a chalk and cheese whiskey. We know it is. However, I've got to say I'm feeling very grateful and quite lucky to see a Samaroli Laphroaig because we know the history of the distillery and the brand or the independent bottling is infamous. Old school Laphroaigs, Samaroli being such a proud, established but high quality bottler, has always gone hand in hand since the late 60s, early 70s. I think Laphroaig and Ardbeg is something people
I think
always talk about.
I think it was late 70s, maybe early 80s, Samaroli started. But obviously the legend goes, if you like, that he had basically free reign in these distilleries. So he could, visit Scotland, try all the casks, and had, like a kid in a sweet shop could have choice of whatever he fancied.
It's not a distillery that I've been to. I've been on Islay, but I've not been to Laphroaig.
Okay.
Have you been?
A couple of times, I think. Yeah. The distillery manager at the moment, Barry McCaffer, is a great guy. He's very, very welcoming. So we've been there a few times to visit him, and it's an iconic whiskey. I think when you talk about different styles of whiskey and you talk about the extremes and the ends of the spectrum, Laphroaig is often the example of, as you say, a challenging whiskey.
It's the dram that's always given. If you're in a rural village in the Northern Highlands and they've got 3 whiskies on the bar, one of them will be Laphroaig 10. Because they just haven't, if there's going to be an Islay, a definitive, recognisable Islay, traditionally I think Laphroaig 10 was that. Obviously Lagavulin very trendy and such now. But that TCP, iodine, medicinal notes are the notes that not only their greatest fans give them, but also the people who are kind of like more fearful for them.
They've been very smart, sort of marketing-wise. I think they've sort of taken a leaf of Marmite's book, in that it's very much kind of love it or you hate it, and we want to hear your first opinions. So I remember they had a whole campaign where you could tweet in your tasting notes, and you'd have people saying stuff like, "Oh, it's like licking an ashtray," or was it French kissing a mermaid? Was another one, which you kind of
interesting.
You see where they're coming from.
Yeah, so people. I think it's iodine. It's the one whiskey that's been described as iodine. I thought that sounds terrible. Yeah. And then the guy who told me it went, "Oh no, it's special," and that was like I was complimenting it.
It's very typical of some whiskies in that the way some people describe it to other people sounds awful. Yeah. But to other people think that sounds great.
But heavily peated. What we're saying is it's a heavily peated.
It's got a very high ppm. So phenols per million or whatever. It's technically it is very, very smoky. They say that they're the most flavourful Scotch whiskey or something, and it's hard to dispute.
It is hard to dispute that. Certainly memorable, stays on the palate. You won't find a whiskey that, as across our whole range, has as long a finish as a Laphroaig. Yeah. It'll cling to your palate. I think independently bottled Laphroaig is something we're actually seeing more of, but under Williamson.
Yep, which is its alias, I suppose. Yeah.
And so actually, in preparation to go into Islay this year, I'm going to Phage for the first time. I've been trying to drink more Islay whiskey. Okay. So I've had a couple of Laphroaig independently bottled within the last month or so. And I've got to tell you, I'm still working on it. So I do feel very grateful to try it. This one here is...
You say that like you don't like French kissing a mermaid.
This is, don't knock it till you try it. But this is from 1988. I mean, again, I think there's a lot of people, a lot of Laphroaig fans who would love to try this whiskey. So I'm going to give it my best open-minded effort.
That's very good of you. It's a burden trying 1988 Laphroaig, bottled by Samaroli. This one was distilled 1988, bottled 2005, so that makes it 17 years old.
There you go.
Heavily peated whiskey with age generally mellows out. Obviously, you get more cask influence, that harsh smokiness fades away a little bit.
And this one, unusually, is matured in Fino sherry.
Okay.
So sherry maturation is very common. Fino sherry, being such a dry sherry, is not something we see very often. The only example I can think of in kind of official bottlings and core ranges just now is Oban Distillers Edition. There's Fino sherry, but that's the only.
Did Tomatin do a Fino one? Maybe not.
So they do a lot more cask finishes now, so they might do one now. But it's something that you don't see come across very often.
No.
In my experience, I've actually enjoyed a Fino sherry matured whiskey because it does add sweetness. But I don't enjoy drinking Fino sherry because it's so dry.
I'm the same with all sherry. I love it. You know, I love your Glendronachs and your Macallans, but
actually drinking a glass of PX.
Oloroso on its own, gross. PX on its own, yuck.
Whereas it's funny, I can do the sweeter side of it, but Fino sherry to me is quite nutty. It's quite it's so dry. You almost can't believe it's the same family, as your PX.
Yeah.
But it's always given an interesting influence into the whiskey.
Yeah.
A peated whiskey in an unusual maturation. I'm interested to see what this is.
I feel like there's so much going on here. So we know Laphroaig, we know sherry, we know what 17 years of maturation does to a whiskey, but we're still not 100% sure what this is going to be like.
And also people are funny about, some people do get fixated on years, and when it comes to Islay whiskey, when it comes to really heavily peated whiskey, I think you'll agree with me, I'm right in saying that the younger the whiskey, often the more peat will be retained. And so it's why Ardbeg and Laphroaig have had a lot of success with non-age statement young whiskies. Or Ardbeg, even more recently, with a 5-year-old wee beastie, unapologetic. If you like that style, the younger, the more authentic, the dirtier,
if you want
to... 17, this could actually have mellowed the peat a little bit.
I think it will be quite mellow. As you say, younger, smoky whiskies like Ardbeg, Laphroaig can be quite raw and quite rugged. And if you're looking
and
for
more authentic in a way, I suppose, to what the traditional character was.
I suppose if you're looking for that big, hit of smoke, younger is better. So this one, I think you might actually like.
I'm hoping so. The Williamsons that I've had recently have both been under 8 years old. These two Laphroaigs I've had, and they've been cask strength as well. This one here is bottled 45%.
Okay.
So quite welcoming as well. Let's have a little go. Again, my goodness! Old bottles and corks. Right, we're going to have a compilation of us trying to open up bottles.
I think you're a bit...
You got it?
You just went for it. You need to tease it out, Ross.
Really? Push that down proper.
Can you imagine if I didn't bring spare corks? Imagine that.
I know.
Oh, I'm doing pretty well.
I'm feeling good about this. Now, traditionally this is not how to open up a bottle of whiskey, but...
Come on. Oh, it's like scrambled egg.
Nightmare. Bottle 2005, and it really isn't even that long ago.
No, when were you born?
99. Yeah. I was 6 years old, but...
I'm even all the way through.
I'm in better nick than that cork. That's not really saying much.
Alright, we're all the way through.
Okay. We can fix that later.
So just push it through. We're going to have a busy evening tonight, filtering out all this whiskey.
Tonight. Again, it does highlight, opening these old bottles. We're so lucky to be able to do it. And people don't open these bottles. They're so collectible. Often people buy them for collections.
There's not really many left.
Exactly. I suppose it's one of those things that the 17-year-old Laphroaig that has now been in the bottle for longer than it was in the cask.
Yeah, nuts. Right, let's
try it.
Oh, not a single bit of cork. Maybe one bit.
So I'm a wee bit apprehensive, as I say. It's not drank much Laphroaig, but it's a healthy dram.
Oh no, sorry about
that. No, you're
so Laphroaig in general, what do you struggle with it because it's quite aggressive?
I think it's something that I'm okay to admit that working in whiskey for a few years, I haven't drank enough smoky whiskey, so my palate's a little bit intimidated by very heavily peated stuff. On Islay I drink lots of Bunahab, it's no problem. I drink lots of Bowmore even, but Laphroaig and Ardbeg's a bit much for me.
On the nose, how much of that sort of aggressive smoke do you find offensive?
I think you almost can see that in smell, this is not as bad as I anticipated. As bad as anticipated, it's not as intense as I anticipated.
Okay. It's like,
There's a real
I
freshness.
feel like I'm drinking whiskey with my mum. It's not actually that bad. Like, yeah, this is incredible whiskey. I think it's
a real fresh nose, isn't
yeah.
it? It's quite coastal, but it's not coastal in the way that it's salty. It's quite light, and maybe a little bit of citrus in there as well.
Yeah, I feel like the smoke is subdued, but it's still distinctive as Laphroaig smoke. And obviously the Fino sherry element you mentioned before. Do you feel like that's present? Is it prominent?
The palate is Laphroaig.
Okay.
The palate is it's quite rounded. I don't think the strength's too much. To my palate, I get very little Fino sherry influence. I get big, warming, peat smoke, like bellowing, like bonfire smoke. There is a sweetness to it. Again, I think there's a nice citrus note on the nose, but the palate is quite dirty. It's quite bold.
Yeah, I think I like it. I think it's good. I think it is recognisable as Laphroaig. I suppose as with many Laphroaigs, it needs a time and a place. And I feel like, standing with you in our studio in Edinburgh in the middle of the day, maybe isn't a time and a place. I think if I was on Isla, a nice summer's evening,
having
on the
some
beach,
seafoods,
having a seafood, whatever, it would absolutely hit the spot.
It is bold. It is a Laphroaig drinker will love this. It is classic Laphroaig. It's old school Laphroaig. It's just a bit intense for me, and this is something that I don't drink black coffee yet. Okay. Maybe by the time I'm 30, I'll drink black coffee. Maybe by the time I'm 30, I'll be able to handle, some more heavily peated whiskey.
I suppose if you used to Ribena, then this is a big step up for young Ross.
It is. It certainly is. I think you look at other videos on the channel. I do like a more emotional whiskey, more subtle.
Right?
Yeah, more something a bit lighter and more welcoming to me.
Yeah, but I don't know. In terms of Laphroaigs I've had, I feel this one is quite elegant and quite refined. I think it has got that distinctive Laphroaig character. It has obviously got that typical Laphroaig smoke. But I don't.
Can you understand why Mr. Samaroli will have chosen this cask?
Yeah, I do, and I think it works well at the strength as well. I think it doesn't need to be, cask strength. I think 45%, you get all that Laphroaig character. For me, I don't know. I feel like I've not had too much experience with Fino sherry.
No.
To be like, that's so strong Fino influence.
Yeah.
Do you feel there's...
No.
Having this blind, I would just assume it was bourbon cask.
If I was having this blind, I would say that's Laphroaig or Ardbeg and it's bourbon cask. Like it's... Again, we don't know how long the Fino was in the cask for, etc. But I think with a heavily peated whiskey, you need a heavily influential cask. And most use of Fino sherry seem to give subtle influences of sherry without being as big and bold as Oloroso or PX.
Yep.
So to go for something subtle against something as big and bold as Laphroaig, the spirit overwhelms the cask in this instance, which is quite rare for us to say.
Yeah.
Normally it's, that whiskey's been
particularly
overrun
after
by the cask.
17 years as well. But it's, for me it's a nice dram. I think if you like Laphroaig, if you like, that coastal maritime peatiness to it, is lovely.
I think I could learn to love Laphroaig 1988, but I feel I'm in a privileged position to say that.
Yeah, I think it's... And for Laphroaigs, I feel this one is quite clean.
Okay.
I feel for whiskies in general,
it's
quite dirty and quite earthy.
Excellent. Well, thanks for letting me try it. Really interesting.
It's a lovely dram, and I think the nice thing about Samaroli bottlings is that they pretty much cover the whole range of characters. So they've got your light, delicate stuff, your sherry stuff, and your smoky stuff as well. So
amazing.
A smart pick, and
Cheers.
Cheers.